special edition of the Closed Fist, where we are here in the metropolis of Blaisdell. Victory One Pro Wrestling. Gentlemen?
I'm Professor Ken Pernicus.
And you, sir?
Richie California, producer.
Richie California. Nice.
Hoot Hickey, paranormal investigator.
Alrighty then. Sir?
Blackjack Phoenix.
So you're Blackjack.
I am Blackjack Phoenix.
Blackjack Phoenix.
The farmer, Bud Good.
He's from Colorado.
I love the hat. Hey, go ahead.
The hipster hitman, Dean Richter.
Hipster Hitman?
Yes, sir.
Victor. Welcome, gentlemen. So, Victory One Pro Wrestling, tell us about this, because haven't heard that much about you guys. I know that you wrestle out of the Riverworks.
Yeah, it used to be Riverworks.
Used to be
I
Riverworks.
was brought into a project at Riverworks where they wanted to bring in professional wrestling on a regular basis.
On a regular
They
basis.
have it like their hometown. They basically moved my wrestling school into Riverworks, and then they booked the shows. And then, as that relationship contractually ended, finally, that's when everything got sent over to Richie California. He says he's the producer. He's also the director, the editor, the maid. He does everything. So it's really his show. I help him out on the wrestling end, dealing with some of the talent, because as anybody knows, it's not an easy job.
So, how long have you been associated with pro wrestling on the independent scene?
I don't know what you mean by that. I started in October of '97.
Okay, wow, okay.
I've had, I couldn't tell you how many matches. Shane Douglas and I sat down in a restaurant one day and tried to figure out how many matches we both had. He was somewhere around 50,000. I was around 5,000. But, for the day and age, for his time, he wrestled every single day for 20 years.
Right.
In my time, I wrestled every single day for like the first 3 or 4 years. Then it started going to like weekends, and 3 days a week. Then I'd have to go overseas to get more work. And so we figured somewhere around 4,500, 5,000-ish.
Good Lord.
Couple matches, just a couple.
Just a couple.
Just a couple, 2, 3.
Just a couple. In your time from when you first started to now, how has the independent scene been as far as like when you first started to now?
Completely different. I don't even know. I'm not sure what had been called an independent scene back then, really.
Right.
It was the very end of the territories.
Right.
So I kind of caught the fallout of the territories going away. It was when the territories went away and Vince bought up everything. There were still promoters holding on. And at
Right.
the end of their ability to hold on a few years later, that's kind of when I came in. So I saw the tail end of the territory days going into independent wrestling as you kind of know it now.
Right.
And it's changed completely. When I first started, the worst wrestler on the card was an amazing worker. And then it got to the point where nobody was trained properly. Over the
Right.
course of just 5 or 6 years, you went from wrestling guys who, you can go in any town, anywhere, walk in, the guy knows the same things you do. You don't have to say a word. You can just put me in a ring with somebody. We'll look at each other, and then boom, we have like a 20-minute match with everything we need.
Right.
Now guys don't even know what they were doing for a while. But I've noticed in the last few years it seems to be changing back, where guys are actually coming out more knowing what they're doing, and it's. But for a while it was nobody knew what they were doing almost.
Wow.
It was very slim. I'd go to a show and anywhere, and you'd have like just a few guys who kind of knew what the work was.
Right.
And everybody else was like, yeah, I'm a pro wrestler. I was trained by this guy. Well, that guy got kicked out of wrestling school in 2 weeks and opened up his own.
Wow.
What did you just learn?
Right.
But they didn't know that because they were brought into a school and they thought they were being taught, but they weren't.
So
that became an epidemic almost.
So Victory One is pretty much like a ground up
Yes.
promotion and everything.
It's totally old school as well. When I told them when I came on, I said the only way I'm going to do it is if everybody knows the right way to do things.
Right.
You can have your own style, but you're going to learn the way it was taught by me I was brought in the old NWA Mid-Atlantic territory.
Okay.
I went to Chief Wahoo McDaniel School.
Oh, wow.
Sweet Hansen was there. Manny Fernandez was one of the trainers. So I'm going to teach guys the same way I was taught. If something's different nowadays, that's fine. Go learn it. But you're going to learn that way of doing it first.
Right. Okay, and going around the table, how long have you been in this game?
Oh, I haven't been in here much. About 10 months, roughly.
10 months? Wow. So what made you want to get into it?
I've just been around wrestling, many years, practically my whole life.
Gotcha.
And I was just thinking to myself, maybe this is for me. Maybe this is what I want to do with my life, is to go around and wrestle for different promotions,
Gotcha.
and so I found Victory One Wrestling, and I've been with them ever since.
No kidding. How about you, Rich?
Well, I don't wrestle, but I've been a wrestling fan since the mid '80s. I think WrestleMania 2 was my first exposure to wrestling, and so even though that's always talked about as one of the crappier WrestleManias, it's still one of my favorites because it's one of the first ones that I saw. So when I met Ken, and he told me about Victory One. I said, well, that sounds like something that I'd be interested in doing. And I had worked in TV for 15 years. I was a producer, a director, an editor. I worked in a non-union place, so I got to do it all.
Right.
So and now it's kind of a double-edged sword because now I have to do it all because there's nobody else doing it. But I do know, I know what I'm doing, and I said, well, I'd like to apply this to something that I really enjoy, and I really enjoy pro wrestling done the right way, which in my estimation is the old school way. And so when I heard that was going to be, the number one thing about this promotion, I thought, well, this would be something that I'd really like to get involved with.
Sure. Ken?
I'm Ken, and I'm 30 years old. I've been a wrestling fan for at least more than 3/4 of that. My earliest memory of wrestling is Shawn Michaels putting Marty Jannetty through the window of the barbershop.
That was awesome.
I mean, for like a 4, 3, 5-year-old kid, that was like, holy cow, this is serious business. And my dad was a fan too, and I really fell in love with it, and years on, I fell out of love with it because it got stupid with Vince Russo and all that kind of shit in WCW. Sorry if I'm swearing.
On this network, you can. That's
okay. And like all that crap, and it's like I fell out of love with it from 2000 to like I saw Ring of Honor in Buffalo in 2006. And I'm like,
that's some good stuff.
I fell back in love with wrestling. So I'm like, and I'm a big guy. I'm about 300 pounds, and I'm short. And I'm like, well, I can't ever be a superstar like these guys. But I can talk better than most people, and I can think better than most people. So I ended up coming to Victory One, and I'm like, I can manage, and it's been my dream. I've been doing it just over a year now.
Awesome.
I think they say this date I remember is August 23rd, 2016 is when I started. So it's just a little bit over a year.
I remember how excited you were when he says, I got to tell you something. I'm not going to tell you till I come over. And I told my wife, I said, oh man, Ken's got a girlfriend. I said, this is what, and he says, no, I'm going to be a wrestler. And I said, that's probably the exact same level in your world.
You're right, it is, brother.
You don't know where a conversation's going when somebody says, I have something to tell you, but I can't tell you right now.
Right, not over the phone.
How about you?
I got my start last year in June, so June 2016. Much like Kenny, got hooked as a young kid. Fell out like around high school times. Just wasn't as interesting then. But then got back into it
Gotcha.
years ago, and I was contemplating actually starting, and I was like, well, am I too small? And then I actually went to a local show, and I saw who was it? James Storm wrestle Cloudy, who is shorter than me, and I was like, well, if he can
do it, why can't I?
I know, and not like in the, if he can do it, but it was like, holy crap, he can do it. I have no reason to say I can't now. And then I was actually looking around, trying to find a school, and I was like, oh, well, I don't know where to go. And then
because there's a few schools around here.
Exactly. And then I saw the night of the first Riverworks show, a friend of mine on Facebook posted about it. And I was like, holy crap, there's wrestling right there. I live rather close to Riverworks.
Gotcha.
And I saw they had a school open. I saw the flyer on it on their website. I'm like, holy crap, that's like 2 minutes from my house.
I can do this.
So,
why not?
yeah, and here I am now.
Okay, Mr. Colorado.
How you doing?
How you doing?
I'm doing just fine. I got basically the same story. I mean, excuse me. I definitely don't want to age myself, but I've been a fan.
Age yourself. Go ahead.
No, but I've been a fan probably longer than most of these people have been alive. But I just always followed it. I guess my first memory would be I saw Bob Backlund defend the WWF belt against Bob Orton when I was, I don't know, like 5 years old.
Oh my God.
But anyways, I've been a fan for forever, just about. But you know, I got up in age, and I saw a flyer for the school and figured I'll give it a shot. So, you know, I went in there and I just enjoyed it. He reached out to me and I gave it a shot, and it just felt good.
Well, you also came and watched for months.
Okay, here, I'll
I see you out there. Like, what's that guy with that hair?
He's a stalker.
Why didn't you give him
Oh yeah, Bud has a unique look. For those of you who don't know what he looks like, and here's this guy at the side of the ring. At first, I'm thinking, boy, he's just kind of really staring intently at us. Well, that's a little creepy. I'll be honest.
me for a while before that, but I never email. You can't see their face.
And then this.
I'm getting an email from a gentleman named Bud Good, and then I'm seeing this guy standing out by the ring every now and then. So I never was able to put the two together.
Right?
It's my own fault.
You know, he's only got 40 pounds of hair in that hat on his head, and
Oh my goodness, he's getting a workout. Now, when you hear these stories about like, hey, or if you get a young kid or somebody that's been a lifelong fan, you being a trainer, pretty much, and all this. I've been a fan my whole life, and I want to be a pro wrestler. What do you tell them?
Well, I tell them it's not what they think.
Yeah.
A lot of people, they go to an event, and if it's done right, it almost looks to people in the crowd like, anybody could do this.
Right.
I could do this.
Right.
That's just because you're watching good talent.
Right.
And I forewarn them, you know, this isn't what, I mean, I'm not going to take, it's not like when I went, it was almost like a boot camp when I went to school. We weren't even allowed in the ring for a while. We were bumping out in mats outside the ring. We weren't even allowed in it.
Oh, wow.
Then finally we got allowed into the ring once we passed a certain level. Didn't do anything like that. You know, I took care of him like Hoot Hickier started off when he was still underage. So, you know, his parents had to sign a waiver. And, you know, I told them, I'm like, listen, you know, there's a chance he's going to get hurt. You know, even with me protecting him, he could still get hurt. And I break them in based on who they are. You know, if they're not the most athletic, I work them on other ways. Go start with the basics and avoid some things until later.
When somebody comes to you and says, I want to be a pro wrestler, what do you look for in a person? I mean, when you look at somebody, I mean, is there anything specific
There's
that
nothing
you
that
look
could stop you from being a pro wrestler. Ken said he wasn't that athletic. I said, well, you're smart and you have a big mouth. You could be a jerk, so welcome in. Justin thought he was too small. I'm like, but you're athletic and you have an amateur wrestling background. Get in the ring.
Right.
When Bud Good came in, I'm like, well, just look at you, get in the ring. But also his knowledge of wrestling, being back to, you know, remembering Bob Backlund, he's seen every era. So when we're trying to put together a product or an event or anything, who do you go to? You don't go to the person who's been doing it all the time. I'm more out of touch than anybody because I'm more inside. I look for that outside touch. And that's where guys like Bud Good come in great because he's seen every era of wrestling. He probably watched Gene Heckenschmidt.
George Hackenschmidt.
Before he knew.
You know, to Blackjack's credit, like as a trainer, he's a guy who will inspire anyone. Like I said, I mean, I'm more athletic than I give myself credit for. But he's like, yeah, take this, and I'll be like, are you sure about that? I'm like, he's like, yeah, you'll be fine, you'll be fine. And sure enough, I take like some ridiculous thing like a backdrop, and I'll be like terrified as I'm up there. But it's like, he's right, I could take it, or he, you know, take a body slam, which is. One of the other guys, the creative genius, he's 6'3"-ish, and he body slammed me, and that's a long way up for a guy my size. But he's like, no, you'll be fine. And I'm like, I got up there, I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And then he slams me, I'm like, oh, and I'm like, I didn't die, so I guess I'm all right.
Well, a lot of people don't realize, too, that for the past however long I've been working with them, I've been teaching them to be safe about it. Sometimes they still have those nerves or an anxiety about it. And sometimes if I know for a fact that they're safe and the person they're with them's good, I'll just tell them to, you know, shut the hell up. Close your eyes and take that move. You know, but I wouldn't push somebody to do that if I didn't think that they could be safe. You know, I wouldn't tell him to perform the move if he wasn't ready.
Right.
And the guy he was in the ring with is so strong, he press slammed me over his head.
Good boy.
Yeah, that's how this weird natural inner strength he has. So I knew that Ken was safe. And I knew that he knew how to protect himself in the fall. So the only thing I knew was Ken was a little scared.
Yes, that little scared, yeah.
He told me
That's,
to change his panties and try it. But I knew with 1,000% certainty that everybody was going to be okay before I said. There's been plenty of times where I said, you know what, don't do that.
Right.
There's thousands of times where I was like, no.
Now, a question for the whole table. in this in this regard. There's been a couple of incidents over the last month. The Sexy Star and Rosemary, and most recently, I don't know if anybody knows this, but a few nights ago, Cody Hall apparently intentionally broke Vinny Massaro's hand. And said that it was, Vinny Massaro was saying that he did it on purpose. When you hear stories like that, what goes through your mind, or what?
Well, if I could say, a lot of time my first thought is to think it's a work.
Right.
Because there's very, very, very little that, I mean, I've been around a long time, and the most I've ever done was, take a rookie and give him a couple hard shots.
Right.
Or even with new guys that are my own, I'll put them in the ring with a veteran that's a friend of mine and say, hey, give him a little welcome him, say welcome, the good way.
Yeah.
That's about it. I've never really encountered, I was taught by guys who were around in an era where guys would shoot on you.
Right.
Just to make you look bad, just to make you look stupid, whatever the reason was.
Right.
So I was taught how to wrestle and prevent myself from getting shot on. But that's not really something I've encountered in the last 19 years of the 20 I've been doing this. I've never encountered it, except for in school from these legends, who,
Right.
for some reason, I thought that was very important.
Well, they baptize you in a way. Yeah.
But I've never encountered it. One time, I had a guy he was a world-class amateur wrestler. And he was not letting me get much. And I
Right.
wasn't trying to get anything in because I was there to do a job for him. I was there to make him look good. So I wasn't expecting anything in, but what he was doing was just kind of wrong.
Right.
He wasn't hurting me per se, but he was definitely making it difficult to help put on
A show.
with him.
Yeah.
And make he wouldn't allow me to let him look good.
Right.
It was the weirdest thing. So that I went back to what Manny Fernandez said: hooked his arm, headbutted him in the nose, and the rest of the match I could barely feel him touching me. And it was, but that stuff really doesn't exist much anymore. Maybe it does in places I haven't been.
Right.
But I've never seen it. I've been a lot of places.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah. How about you, Bud? I mean, when you hear stories like that, or any thoughts on it?
No, not really. I don't know if it's a work or whatever, but I would hope to think that, people would have more respect for each other in the ring, whether you agree with, your opponent or not. You shouldn't be out there, deliberately trying to end their career.
Well, one of the
That's
things
kind of foolish.
What I teach my guys, and even other people who I'm around in the locker room, I've been in the ring with people I've hated personally.
Right.
And the match was no different, because I work very snug, a bit snug, but the same amount with somebody that I dislike, as opposed to the 99.5% people that I do like. It's no different.
Right.
The fact is, if I like you, you'll probably get it a little more snug.
Right.
But I know Rosemary's boyfriend. I've been friends with for a long
Right.
time.
Yep.
And I have reached out to him in a mess one time.
Yep.
What was this all about? And they seemed very upset.
Yep.
So I don't think that was a work.
Right.
But I don't know what her reasoning could have been, because Rosemary is a very talented worker.
Yes.
And she's also, what a lot of people don't know, is she's a trained fighter. If she was given an opportunity in a fight, she would kick people's ass. She'd kick my ass.
Yeah.
She's very tough. Her boyfriend's a small guy that'll kick this whole room's ass. And he's probably about, much smaller than us. And he'll just walk in and start beating everybody up.
Yep.
These are tough people. So I don't know really what happened.
Yeah.
It seems like it was like something happened, but I can't figure out why she would have done that to her.
I guess one of the stories going around is that she had beef with not Rosemary per se, but the other girl that was in the match, and that she claims that she just snapped when she put the arm bar on her. It was like a cross arm breaker, and then she over wrenched it.
Oh, so she made a mistake. Well, mistakes happen. We've all done it. That's a pretty big mistake.
That's a pretty.
That's this kind of PTSD, like possibly. I don't know how you can work. I don't know how you can make a mistake that way.
Yeah,
it seems a hard way. You throw a punch, yeah, you're gonna hit a guy.
Right.
A lot of times, we expect it. It has a name. We wouldn't have named a mistake if it doesn't happen. But that seemed more than just that.
Yeah, how do you feel about a situation like that?
I don't know. At this point, I've seen so much about it, and I really don't know. I'm like, when I first saw it, I was like, I hope it's a work,
Right.
Because I'm like, that's kind of a shitty thing to do, because if you're going to let someone put you in a move and then you just shoot on that move, that's really not cool.
Right.
But I mean, I don't know, apparently, like, you go online and then, you know, this incident happened, and all of a sudden all these other people come out and like, oh, well, Sexy Star has this attitude and has done this before, so.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. How about you, Ken?
I feel pretty strongly about this. I mean, in this incident, isn't even something I really feel strongly about. I feel when I think about incidents like this, I think about Kazuya Shibata. I love Shibata. He was so cool. He comes out in black tights to like poppy music, and he's just such a badass. And here's this guy for no reason just doing shoot headbutts, and basically ends his career.
Right.
And there's no, after you've seen a Jack Gallagher headbutt, it looks just as good, it looks better than a real headbutt. Why would you ever do something like that in a match? And it just boggles my mind, because even if you don't like the guy, if you do something like that to them, you just look like an unprofessional fool.
That guy's trusting you.
Yeah, and so on top of it, why risk? Because if you're good at what you're doing, you should be able to do the exact same thing and make it safe. And so there's just no reason to do it. It's pointless.
Right. How about you, Rich?
Well, yeah, from a production standpoint, I mean, I'm always worried about the show, the final product, you know, what the fans who are either paying for or tuning in for, you know, what they get. Like, that's the important thing to me. And something like Ken was just saying, it seems unprofessional to pull something like that in a setting where so many people are watching, so many people are going to see what happens, so many people are going to have opinions about it. And I mean, I've never been in the ring personally, but emotions, you know, run high. Maybe, you know, like Blackjack said, maybe something just got triggered, you know, when the move was put on. But to me, just from like an outsider production standpoint, it seems very unprofessional. And why would you risk your reputation for like a personal vendetta like that, especially in that kind of scenario?
Yeah.
We can get you in the ring, you know. I mean, Dean has an opening, I think, you know.
Blackjack has a body slam with your name on it.
Yeah,
Anytime
probably.
I think Dean has a couple forearms for you, too.
Oh, yeah.
How about you?
So yeah, I agree with like what Bud Good said. I
Not
would
with what we
hope.
said.
Well, and what all you guys said too. But what Bud Good said about respect, I would hope that they had more respect with their opponent in the ring.
Right.
I've been in the ring with guys who nobody would give them respect, but you know they were talented workers, so I worked with them.
Yeah.
We were able to put on great shows, great matches. But I mean, you still don't do that to somebody. You know, I've never been in the ring with people that I disliked, and the thought never even hit my head because I was too busy putting on a show
Now,
to really even think about that.
Now, as a promoter, if you have a guy coming in town, he's from out of town, or you contact somebody and you find out that they had a reputation like that, how do you handle something like that?
Well, Richie California does a lot of promoting. I'll help book. Booking
Right.
is where you kind of
Right.
go with that. So if he came to me with, hey, I got an email from this guy, I might tell him, you know, hey, I've heard about this. I've seen it a million times over the years. Not just, you know, in what we have here, but, you know, working for other promoters. They come in the locker room and say, hey, guys, I just heard from this guy. I think he's pretty good. I think I should bring him in. I've heard the same name get brought up in so many different locker rooms all over the Northeast, and the whole locker rooms go, oh, no, not him. It's terrible. How it just follows some people.
Right.
And, I mean, from like, you know, the farthest reaches of Michigan, all the way down to West Virginia, all the way over to Maine. Up into, you know, the farthest reach of Quebec, like where God lost his shoe. You say one certain name and everybody's like, oh, come on, not him.
Right.
One guy's like, I'll stab him.
We don't need 911, okay? It's not that kind of thing.
The promoter was even like, whoa, I guess not. He wasn't expecting the whole locker room to all of a sudden just, you know, wow, come on, you're kidding.
Right.
And, I mean, you know, whatever talent, I mean, I've had my own experiences in the ring with that person. But it was just, it's still funny to hear that. And other than that, it's nothing that bad.
Right.
Usually.
Right.
I mean, with certain people, it could be.
It could be,
That's
right.
probably the worst case scenario I've ever heard.
Now, somebody that now, if you have a chance to work with somebody that you haven't worked before, I mean, how do you guys approach that kind of a situation? As far as that go, do you go to blackjack and say, "Hey, what's this guy all about?" Or how do you guys approach a situation like that?
Well, for me and my guys, Dean and the Creative Genius, when we get in a situation like that, we say we study, we watch tapes, we find out what these guys are about. Are they just like us? Do they have a more technical / brawling style, power move style? Or are they more like our tag team champions right now, Tommy and Dutch? Are they more high flyers? And we go from there. And if ideally you want a contrast because that gives a better match. But if we'll work, if these guys are technical guys, we'll go in there and we'll brawl with them. And so you say, you want to work with different people because how else are you going to grow? I mean, if Dean and Bud have wrestled 40 matches, they may have a great match, but that's all they got is one great match with one opponent. So that's how we approach it. We study.
He'll take what he learned in that match with Bud Good and apply that into a different match with somebody different.
Right.
And then next thing you know, you could work with anybody.
Right.
That's the goal.
Right.
One night, you got to get in the ring with a fat guy like me, a little guy who wrestles like him, somebody who's going to, entertain the crowd and knock your head off like him.
Right.
You got to be able to go in and have that match with anybody. And that's the goal of, being a good worker. That's where you get considered workers. You can work with anybody. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into that. We'll talk about that another time. But that's one of the main things you look for is can he work with anybody?